Sangonomiya Kokomi is arguably one of the best characters in the game, and one of the things that I've definitely argued for on this channel is that for casual players that are in the overworld, she helps out a ton, and we'll sort of go into a couple of reasons. And obviously for in-game players that are at the Spiral Abyss and awaiting new content, she's so helpful because you create one Kokomi, but you can obviously fit her into multiple roles on multiple different teams. So arguably the amount of consolidation and value that's compressed into one unit makes her like so valuable. Now obviously on this channel we've covered the meta aspects when it comes to the end game and DPS and team utility and team building with Kokomi, and that's not really what I'm going to sort of be covering in this video, because I've done pretty much that. Those are the only things I've ever really done on the channel. So what we're really going to talk about today is why Kokomi for 90% of the players is arguably the best character to have. And obviously the number one reason is that Kokomi is essentially a portable statue of 7. You don't need to ruin your gameplay experience by teleporting to the nearest statue of 7. You don't need characters that can only heal because they have an elemental burst, and well, now you're stuck in the wild, you don't have your elemental burst, so yeah, it's kind of like a pain to now sort of go and heal them up, or that your characters aren't always fully healed to 100% levels and so on. You know, Kokomi takes care of all of these things. She takes care of the automatic health management in the game, and accompanied with this is Kokomi's large tank health pool. In other words, her HP pool is so big, so that if you're ever in a situation where you're panicking or you are knocked outside of the jellyfish's range, you can always swap back to your Kokomi and she can take some of the hits. She can effectively take their number of hits for about 2 characters, and this is so helpful because your characters might not have their cooldowns ready, they might be on low health and so on, so switching to Kokomi is absolutely great. And another awesome benefit is if your entire team is low, you can switch to Kokomi, you can have a jellyfish on the field which will heal her, and then she can heal up the rest of your team whilst still doing damage. And I think this is just what makes her so good for most players. And also Kokomi, because she's got access to the Ocean Newt Clamp set, is one of the very few characters that can actively dish not just decent amounts of hydro damage onto against enemies and so on, but also a decent amount of physical damage. So you've got a character that can effectively deal 2 types of damage, and hopefully you've sort of seen in the background how even though Kokomi without her elemental burst is not doing that much damage, the Ocean Newt Clamp or the little bubble pops that you get are like sort of dealing damage. They are like contributing to whittling down the enemy's health, and the enemies generally don't have a large enough health pool for you to worry about any DPS loss, because Kokomi's damage in and of itself can pretty much take out most enemies at most world levels without even requiring you to have an additional character on the field. Of course, if you do have extra characters on the field, you can just then have like very nice complementary effects. So for instance, if you put Yelan or Xingqiu with Kokomi, you typically have like a very solid team that can attack enemies at range. So you don't need to chase after enemies like you saw there against the Thunderbird. It really is so good. The other thing that a lot of people don't seem to realize is that at the lower or just generally in the overworld and so on, you don't really need high crit rate or crit damage stats in order to defeat most enemies. I think the biggest exception being perhaps the Raiden Shogun boss fight, but most enemies you don't need cracked artifacts, and this is one of the little hidden secrets about Kokomi. Because she's an HP scaler and her damage scales linearly, she can actually outdamage a lot of the DPS characters, because those DPS characters, if they don't have access to crit rate and crit damage, will actually fall below Kokomi's damage threshold. It's only once you've got like really well built characters at a very high level that your damage is going to really sort of skyrocket past what Kokomi can do, but that is not really required to defeat most enemies and to defeat them comfortably. So this is one of the great things about Kokomi. For the majority of casual players, she offers more than enough damage through her Ocean Uclam set, and her Elemental Burst in order to take down most enemies with ease. And the cool thing is, you're obviously not just limited to using Kokomi, you can obviously, like I said earlier, use other teammates to complement Kokomi, and if you want to learn how, well, there's obviously quite enough like content, even though it's Abyss type of content, that you can easily apply to the overworld bosses. The other thing that I've also heard a lot of people have said about Kokomi is the fact that, well, her jellyfish is stationary, but once again, there's no timer in the overworld. So one of the cool little tricks that you can do is, let's say the enemy like Magokenki like teleports away, you can stand at your jellyfish, you can get like a little Ocean Ute Clam bubble from the jellyfish, and you can run towards the enemy and then hit him and then come back and then pick up another bubble. This is the one thing that makes it like so cool. You're not just that restricted in terms of just standing in a jellyfish's like little range and so on. You can actually you actually have quite a bit of mobility around it, to play around it, and certainly a lot of enemies tend to prefer to come to you instead of just running away, unless they're like sort of like overworld bosses and such. I think there are a couple of other things a couple of other soft aspects we can mention about Kokomi. For one, she's got this very thematic sort of touch where she can walk on water and so on. Now, for a lot of people that might have Ayaka, this might be a bit of a moot point because, well, you can just use Ayaka to Ice Bridge, which is a very nice thing about Ayaka. But if you don't have Ayaka, Kokomi certainly does make that bit of exploration quite a bit easier, because you can definitely traverse terrain that would otherwise be irritating to just cross over. And of course, being able to walk on water allows you to take very nice photos with Kokomi, and this is perhaps, I think, arguably another big reason why she's one of the best characters, in that she's perhaps the most beautiful and elegant of all of the characters. Her animations are smooth, they're flowy. The character herself is actually very nice to look at. She's one of the most photogenic characters in the game, right next to Yelan, and I think this is what makes her so much fun to play with. If you don't like the combat, you can easily stand there in the deserts of Sumeru and you can take a beautiful picture and perhaps use it as a wallpaper, or as, like, let's say, a thumbnail to a YouTube video or something like that, and that just makes it so cool. The character content that she provides, I feel like, is quite there. Unfortunately, with Kokomi, we don't have enough actual content when it comes to sort of showcasing her interaction with many other characters. We had a bit of trickling with the Onkonomiya event and obviously with the Iridori festival, but nothing quite as big as the Archon quest and her obviously personal quest. So hopefully in the future we can get more and more character specific content, but other than that, you've got a character that pretty much delivers on all of the things that you would want as a casual. Healing on demand, sufficient damage, ranged damage against enemies. Yeah, she's got an ability to apply off-field hydro consistently, so you can just trigger as many reactions as you want. She's got dual damage types. Honestly, there's quite a lot that she does, and I think if you just sort of take the totality of what she does versus what other characters can do, I think it's not a stretch to say that, look, you get so much from just like building and investing into one character. And that, to me, is really what makes Kokomi so special, arguably the best character in the game. But yeah, that's what I've got to say about her. I absolutely love her, as you guys all know. And that's been my little Kokomi re-review. Thanks for watching. Cheers.